Breaking tonight, no collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction. It is official, everybody. America's political and media establishment has been dividing this country on the basis of a lie. And all because they won't accept the result of the 2016 election. Evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of The Next Revolution. President Trump back in the White House tonight, just hours after Attorney General William Barr released the conclusions of the Mueller report. And we are live in New York with our top team standing by to break it all down. Sara Carter, Gregg Jarrett, Lisa Booth, all here with me in studio. Ari Fleischer is with us. And joining us exclusively tonight, Trump 2020 Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. In a moment, I'll give you my opinion on all this, what it reveals about the rotten and corrupt establishment, the damage they've done to this country, and what must now be done to bring real justice and accountability to those who are guilty of dividing America and undermining the foundations of our democratic republic. See where I'm going with that one? But first, let's get the facts. Attorney General William Barr sent his summary of the Mueller report to Congress about 3:30 Eastern Time today. Here's the letter, the key findings. Mueller did not find that President Trump, his associates, or anyone working on his campaign, quote, conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 election. No collusion. Mueller does not recommend any further indictments, and the Attorney General did not conclude that the President obstructed justice. However, the President was not exonerated by Mueller either, leaving it up to the Attorney General to make that judgment. In turn, the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General did conclude that there was no obstruction. So after all this, the subpoenas, the search warrants, the witness interviews, the endless, breathless Democrats and never-Trumpers screaming, tweeting and promising indictment, impeachment, and even prison for President Trump. Guess what? Nothing. No collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction. Here's how the president reacted.
It was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration. It's a shame that our country had to go through this. To be honest, it's a shame that your president has had to go through this before I even got elected. It began. And it began illegally. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed.
We will get to some of those points tonight, I promise you. But here's how the Democrats reacted. Instead of cheering the fact that our president did not conspire with a foreign power to steal an election, they're attacking the Attorney General and calling everyone liars.
The president or his people are saying it's a total exoneration. That contradicts what the special counsel found. It's a lie about what the special counsel found, but we should not be surprised that they lie anymore.
All right, let's break it all down with our top team tonight. The best people we could possibly have. I'm going to start with you, Sara. What's your reaction to what we've heard today?
I'm not surprised at all, because for the last 2.5 years, well, I would say nearly 3 years, since we started looking at Hillary Clinton and what happened with James Comey and the fact that he exonerated her, I've been investigating this. And I know it seemed that every single story I had kept exposing people in the FBI and the DOJ. But the thing was, I couldn't find any evidence, even when I asked top officials like John Brennan and others, never found one shred of evidence or proof that there was any type of collusion or conspiracy with the Trump campaign in Russia. So today, I think, is definitely a vindication for the administration. It definitely feels good to know that truth is standing tall, and this is what the American people were looking for. And I think now it's time to move on. And as the president said, I think the important point here is that we don't let this slide by. We don't put it under a rug. It has to be investigated.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, as I say, later in the show. But just to strengthen what you've just said, there's a really interesting line of detail here from the letter that hasn't received much coverage, but it's very important. The Attorney General says there was no collusion. And here's a quote: despite multiple offers from Russian-affiliated individuals to assist the Trump campaign. It's not just that there wasn't collusion. The Russians tried it, and they resisted it. Now, Gregg Jarrett, sorry, we got to have a moment here. So here's your book. Here it is, The Russia Hoax. Did you ever think, I suspect you did, that it would be Robert Mueller?
I think he's ready for this conversation.
It was Robert Mueller that confirmed the accuracy of the title of your book.
Yeah. Collusion was always a hoax, and anybody who actually cared to examine in depth the facts, the evidence, and the law inexorably came to that conclusion. But the media, the mainstream media, refused to do any of those things. They simply assumed that Trump must have somehow stolen the election by hatching a plot in the bowels of the Kremlin with Vladimir Putin. And it was based largely on this phony dossier that was conjured by two nefarious individuals, Glenn Simpson and Christopher Steele. Simpson has now taken the fifth. He's clammed up. Steele was fired for lying, and now he's in hiding. So that pretty much tells the story.
It's an unbelievable story, and both of you, honestly, you've been absolutely at the forefront of documenting what really went on. I just want to, Ari, bring you in here with a very specific question, if I may, which goes to the real. It seems to me when you look at what's being said on other networks and by leading Democrats, they're kind of glossing over the no collusion, unsurprisingly, and they're focused on this obstruction question. And it seems to me this is where the argument is going. Robert Mueller declined to state whether or not there was obstruction by the president. He said, I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. And the Attorney General, with Rod Rosenstein, very clearly have said, in their legal opinion, there was no obstruction. What you're getting from the other side is it's none of their business. It's not for Attorney General Barr to decide. It's for Congress to decide whether there was obstruction, or it's for Mueller to decide. We don't understand why he didn't, but it's certainly not a member of Donald Trump's cabinet and so on. What do you think of that? Because that seems to be the centerpiece of the attack on this.
And this gets to the fundamental insidiousness of what this has always been about. It's always been about getting Donald Trump removed from office, not through the ballot box, where the American people get to make the decisions, but through power, through impeachment or the 25th Amendment. And that itself is a terrible threat to the American system of government. And so if the Democrats pick up on this fact now, that there wasn't enough evidence to go after him on obstruction, not enough to say he's exonerated, but the Democrats decide that this is going to be their cause, they will again be pursuing the same insidiousness that has driven for 2 years this nation to the point where we question whether the presidency was legitimate. This is terrible for our system. And I think the Democrats need to recognize that hype, hysteria, and hyperbole are a terrible way to lead America, and they need to move on, let it go, and focus on things that the country wants to focus on, not this, no longer.
I so wish that might be possible. I don't get a sense tonight that that's where we're headed. But you mentioned their efforts to get Donald Trump out of office. Let's bring in Kayleigh, who's part of the team trying to keep him in office. Kayleigh, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The Trump campaign has actually put out a video tonight, which is I think very much on point, documenting some of the things we've been hearing about Russia over the last while. Let's just watch that quickly, and I'll get you to react on the other side.
The evidence is pretty clear that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians.
I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
We saw strong evidence of collusion.
Well, we know there was collusion with people in the campaign.
I think a mountain of evidence of collusion between the campaign and the Russians.
Okay, great. I think the consensus from around the table is great job there. So, Kayleigh, over to you. I'll let you elaborate.
Thanks, Steve. That's right. That was Democrats, in their own words, lying to the American people time and time again, peddling a Russia collusion conspiracy theory that they knew was wrong, all along, but they were in a desperate quest, as Ari just mentioned, to retake power so they would stop at no ends. But they did have two slip-ups to show you that all along they knew that this was an evidence-free conspiracy. Maxine Waters in May of 2017, when press said, there's actually no evidence, and Dianne Feinstein on another network said, well, there's rumors in newspapers, but not necessarily evidence. So Democrats knew this was a conspiracy theory, but they did not care. They lied to you, America, and you just saw it replayed on your television screens, and they were caught today when the special counsel exonerated the president.
Exactly, and in their own words, exactly as you say. Lisa, what are the Democrats saying now?
Well, if you look at social media, Steve, the push for the Democratic Party right now is they're going to zero in on the fact that this letter mentioned that the special counsel, although they did not find a crime with obstruction of justice, that President Trump's also not exonerated. That's what they're zeroing on. Also, you look at Nadler in his press conference today and saying the fact that it took 22 months for the special counsel to investigate, but Attorney General Barr has now come to a conclusion that there's not enough information to establish obstruction of justice in 48 hours. And I want to pull up some tweets from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, if we can put that up there. So he's saying Americans want the truth. They deserve the full Mueller report now. So basically, if there's any information that's withheld, which we know there's going to be based off of grand jury information, classified information, executive privilege, Democrats are going to call foul. There's also this from Speaker Pelosi as well, saying Attorney General Barr's letter raises as many questions as it answers. The fact that Mueller's report does not exonerate the president on a charge as serious as obstruction of justice demonstrates how urgent it is that the full report and documentation be made public without further delay. Again, zeroing in on if there's any lack of information, they're going to cry foul. Also, Adam Schiff, which you know is the House Intelligence Committee chairman, saying that Mueller spent 2 years investigating obstruction of justice and found evidence that does not exonerate Trump. Barr took 2 days to set aside that evidence. So this is now going to be the focus of Democrats, and I think it's going to hurt them after saying for 2 years that there was collusion and there is not, to continue down this road.
Well, they are continuing, despite what Ari, they're not going to let it go. Listen, all our team are going to stay with us for the whole hour. We've got a lot more coming on this breaking news story. A big night here. Please stay with us.